afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock in time for Sports4CLE. Hope your weekend is off to a good start. The Browns, in fact, did renegotiate Deshaun Watson's contract. We'll talk more about that in just a minute. ESPN Live, their crew talking about where Kyler Murray, who is expected to be cut at the beginning of the league new year next year, where they think he'll end up.
He can go where he wants to go because he's going to take a very low deal that you can make the argument would be attractive to most teams across the league.
Yeah, it's good context, right? Jeremy, what more do you want to add to the Kyler scenario?
Well, he's going to have suitors when he is eventually released or traded. I mean, they'll leave a small window open to try to trade him. Probably not going to happen, but I think he's going to take his time. That's my sense. He's going to let the new league year come on Wednesday. He'll be released, and then he wants to take an official visit somewhere, meet with teams in person, and Kansas City would be fascinating. I hadn't heard that one. That's a sneaky one. Also, the Colts. I mean, look, Daniel Jones, whatever they do with him, it's expected he'll be back in Indianapolis, but he's not a slam dunk to start week 1 or even week 4. They have options, and they have weapons and a pretty good team. Kyler Murray could slide into there for a year.
Kyler Murray's upside with Kevin O'Connell and those weapons. The other thing is, this is a little bit of a nuance. I'd sign him to a 2-year deal, not a 1-year deal. You look at the difference between Mac Jones, who's under contract with the 49ers, and Daniel Jones, who's now a free agent. I'm sure Indy, which did a great job identifying Daniel Jones, wish they had that second year. So even though he's cheap this year, I'm going to try to do everything I can to get that second year when I sign Kyler Murray.
An interesting perspective. Again, Murray can pretty much choose where he goes, so he will be involved in that decision. Rich Eisen from the NFL Network, his thoughts on QB2 Tai Simpson, who has been in Berea for a 30 visit with the Browns.
If you get Tai Simpson and you have him there and you think maybe this could be what Todd Monken views as a quarterback of the future, and you go all in on it, 24th overall is not a bad spot to snag him. Certainly if you feel he's worth it at 21 overall for the Steelers. And if the Steelers don't take him 21st overall, well, then let's just say you're sitting there at the top of the second round and you're getting antsy and you want Tai Simpson the same way that the Giants wanted Jackson Dart, right?
Okay.
And they trade back in to the first round to go snag him to get that 5th year of contractual control and wind up flipping draft considerations for that process. Maybe, just maybe, the Browns saying, first guy we had in being Tai Simpson sends a signal to everybody. If he passes the Steelers at 21, 24 might not be a bad spot to pop up to go get him because we might take him.
It'll be interesting to see exactly what happens relative to the quarterback position. Browns haven't committed to anybody, and they've had the opportunity, numerous opportunities to do so, relative to Sanders, relative to Watson, relative to Gabriel. Greg Cosell, NFL Films, talking about what he sees with Fernando Mendoza, the presumed number 1 pick in this year's draft.
He's not a playmaker. He's a higher level executor of a well-schemed pass game. He's an efficient and consistent ball distributor from the pocket. And that doesn't look as cool as guys running around. Now, when you watch someone like Mendoza, he made certain kinds of throws within their offense. He didn't work the middle of the field very often. There was a significant emphasis on RPO concepts and back shoulder fades. There weren't many throws between the numbers at the intermediate levels. You have to evaluate that. But the bottom line is, for him to be a higher level success in the NFL, 2 foundations of his game must be pocket efficiency and precise ball placement. And he's kind of shown he can do that. It's just he didn't really make all the kinds of throws that you want to see. Doesn't mean he can't do it. His arm is good. But my point with him is that he kind of plays the position old school. It's probably why Tom Brady really likes him, because he kind of plays the position that way. He's not a runaround guy. You know, he's a subtle, nuanced, detailed, disciplined craft kind of quarterback, and for some reason we don't talk about that as if those are traits.
Yeah, you know, the subtle nuance in the pocket is what made Brady so good. So it's kind of interesting. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Mendoza. Bucky Brooks, NFL Network, talking about Carnell Tate after the scouting combine.
Carnell Tate is interesting, right? Because, and this I would say is the bad thing about the combine, because the combine has a bit of a track and field meat to it. It feels like a track meet, right? Sometimes a really good player can get lost in the sauce by all these guys that are blitzing the track. And the reported, 4.54, 4.54, 4.57, whatever that is. Yeah. In the stands, it's always going to be different when we got the handhelds. He's plenty fast enough. We see the speed on tape. It's just interesting the perception that hovers over him now because there were so many other fast wideouts that he appears to be a slowpoke, even though most of us would say, hey, man, this dude is the best, if not one of the top 3 in the draft class, hands down.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see if he's there at 6, what the Browns think of him, and do they, in fact, take him at 3. Some news from around the NFL. Adam Schefter reporting that Taylor Decker, left tackle for the Lions, has asked for and will be granted his release. Decker, a little bit older, 32 years old, but pretty good tackle. Interesting to see what he will get on the free agent market. He will be a free agent. All right, let's turn our attention Mid-American Conference basketball. Tonight, the Miami Redhawks trying to complete a perfect 31-0 regular season in Athens against their arch rivals, the Ohio Bobcats. Battle of the Bricks. ESPN's Stephen A. Smith with his thoughts on if the Redhawks should be an NCAA tournament team, regardless of what happens tonight and the rest of the year.
There is no reason on God's green earth why a team that goes 30-0 in the regular season, only the 4th team in 35 years to do so, can't make a field of 1 of 68. That's insane. You go 30-0 in a regular season. I mean, talk about the equivalent of literally saying that the regular season means absolutely nothing. If you go 30-0 and you don't make the NCAA tournament, the regular season no longer means a damn thing. You can't do that. You got to find a way to get them in. I don't care what seed, what level, whatever. 30-0 is 30-0, and you can't do that to them. I'm sorry. I can't vibe with that because you know what? Their schedule is their schedule. Their conference is their conference. Their competition is their competition. But 1 of 68 teams, a team that's 30-0 in a regular season can't make a field of 68? That makes no sense.
I don't know if I agree with Stephen A. Smith, but I do there, and I'd take it even a step further. Why do you have a committee? If the committee exists, are they just reading numbers? Is it just AI? Get rid of the committee. Get rid of Selection Sunday and just plug it into a computer and spit out the top 68 teams based on strength of schedule and quadrant 1 wins and quadrant 4 wins. The committee's job is to watch what happens on the court as knowledgeable basketball people and give it perspective. There hasn't been a Mid-American Conference basketball team that's been unbeaten since 1958. Cavs fans, you know who the center on that team was? Wayne Embry, the legendary GM here. So it hasn't happened in 68 years. If they go unbeaten, they absolutely deserve a bid. They deserve a bid right now at 30-0. We're talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is up first. Stay with us.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on. Great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
Browns are up first on Sports4CLE. Today was the day we knew it was coming. The Browns renegotiated Deshaun Watson's contract. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi talking about that restructure.
It explains why he was kept on the team because
they have to.
He's a reservoir. He's been like a credit account for them over the course of the 5 years.
Which, to me, Tony, what does that leave them with now in terms of cap room as we head into Monday and next week, which is a big week for them? How much room do they have? Well, what can they do?
I don't know up to date what it is. It puts them over. I mean, they were borderline even with the cap or a little below it, a little above it. So, they still have to do more. They'll probably do the same with Denzel Ward.
Yeah.
I think I read it. They already did
that
it.
They are.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And there might be another one or two they can do it to gain cap room. So it'll get them close to $40 million of room to be able to spend, and that's just that's not a $40 million contract. That's $40 million this year.
Well, here it is. It will save them close to $36 million in cap space. They lower his cap number from 80.71. They have not done Denzel Ward yet, but they're working on it. The other one is they traded for Titus Howard. They're redoing his deal. That will save it. It's not going to count $21 million against the cap. That will add to that total of cap savings, cap space that they have free agency. Let's welcome in Garrett Bush, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show in the Barbershop. G. Bush, the Deshaun Watson gold card. Don't run your franchise without it. But they need to do this, and they can make some moves.
Yeah, this is why, when a lot of the people talked about this and this day was always coming, and when people used to talk about, oh, man, listen, maybe the Browns just cut bait, do kind of like what the Broncos did with Russell Wilson a couple of years ago. Maybe, they'll figure out a way to get him off the books and just take the hit. I've always laughed, and I've looked at it, and I talked about it today on Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. I say, this is what accountability looks like. And people say, well, what does that mean? Well, listen, when you made the move for Deshaun Watson and you made an unprecedented move to give him a guaranteed contract, the reality is when that didn't work, you were going to be on the hook for something. And, it's easy to say just get rid of him. Everybody would like to do that. It just doesn't work that way. It's kind of like going to a car lot and being like, yeah, man, I really wanted that new Mercedes-Benz, and you got it. And then 2 years into the process, you have a car problem and the engine's messed up. And then you're like, okay, well, do I still have to make my car payment? Yeah. And you're going to have to fix it. So, and then you're like, well, the engine costs $25,000. Well, listen, you still have to make that car payment. Now, because your car, you might have to save up some money to try to get that fixed. But now you got to get something to get to work every day. Is that your only car? So now you got to take some money to go out and put into a stopgap in terms of, let's get a car. Maybe it ain't got a car payment on, but you got to buy here, pay here. You get one of those, and guess what? Those cars, traditionally aren't very dependable. So now you got a car that you're making a payment on that you got to put a $25,000 engine in, and now you still got to maintenance another car. Are your car payments still coming? Yes, they are. Now, this is real life. This is something every American can understand, and anybody with family can understand these type of things. But it's the same way with sports. This was always going to be, until Deshaun Watson's contract was paid, they were always going to have to figure out a way to continue to field their roster and to get the roster better around his contract. So they kicked the can down the road, and they need that 39, 36, whatever money that is to make the roster better. And then I guess the used car, the cheaper option is, hey, you have Shedeur Sanders, right? You kind of squint and be like, but, did he play all that well? Well, listen, the only way that's your car, you got to get to work. Now, if this car turns out to be great and you don't have to, have a car payment on it, which you don't right now because he's on a fifth-round rookie deal, that's why you see people say, well, why are they investing, and why aren't they going after Malik Willis or Richardson? This is what it was always going to be. This analogy it stays packed. Deshaun Watson is your backup plan. You can't move him, and hopefully you just wait it out till the contract is over and you see what you can do to get him to be a backup or whatever the case may be. But he was always going to be on the roster.
All right, so they're going to have 36, maybe as much as 50 or 60 million that they'll be able to spend in free agency. What areas do you look at and say free agency?
Yeah, so usually they did a really good job of the Titus Howard trade. Now, beggars can't be choosers. He's an upgrade from what they had. So you look at those positions. I like the position there. I want to look at the wide receiver core. Do you bring in another person? Is it Romeo Doubs available? Alec Pierce looks like he's not going to go back to Indianapolis. Can you get a wide receiver, or can you make a move for a wide receiver, whether it's in free agency or with trades, that you can put yourself in a position to not have to take a player that you may need to reach for in the draft. So if you got Titus Howard now, and he's going to be a white tackle, or you can move it, now it gives you flexibility. Do you have to go get Maui Noah? Do you have to go get reach for a Cade Proctor? Maybe you say, okay, well, we can go a receiver early in there. But what happens if they do go get one of those guys like a Pierce or a Dobbs, and you're able to give a couple of dudes? Maybe you can make a trade for Marvin Harrison. I don't know. That's in the books, in the cards. But if you can do that, now at number 6, guess what it opens up? It opens up a level of flexibility, because now you can say, hey, listen, hey, Cincinnati, Dallas, you guys, you like Caleb Downs? They say he's generational. We're open for business. Hey, any of you guys like, hey, listen, Sonny Styles, he looks like a can't miss guy. We open for business. You want to come on up to 6 to talk with us? And guess what? If you're sitting there and you've made those moves to get a receiver or lineman, guess what you can do? You can say, well, listen, I know we got defensive players, but we like Bailey. And we have him on our board as this second-rated player. And guess what? We can get him at 6. So it opens up a lot of things for you in flexibility-wise, if you can. And we'll see what free agent comes. But if you can get that done, you can open up a can of worms for the Browns, where you could trade down, get more picks. You could take the best available player if it's a defensive player. You can stay there and take a receiver. Everything is open for you. They just need a couple of things to fall right if you can get the free agency part done.
All right, ESPN sources are telling Adam Schefter that the Raiders are releasing last year's starting quarterback Geno Smith, barring a trade before the start of the league year. By releasing Smith, they'll open up $8 million in salary cap. They'll take on $18.5 in dead money. So Geno Smith becomes a veteran that's available, kind of like Kyler Murray if he's released, league minimum. You at all interested in a guy like that, or is Deshaun Watson that guy for the Browns?
He's the expensive version of Geno Smith, right? He's the
Gucci.
He's the. You got one of those dudes. To me, if you're looking at this room, if you're gonna bring a guy like that in, I would just stay with what you got. You look at Deshaun Watson, and people are saying they're gonna give him opportunity to compete. He's going to be on the roster. Shedeur Sanders, they talk about, Todd Monken talks about, him being an elite skill set when it comes to playmaking, more mobile than he thought, played 7 games. I go around and say, listen, let's build this thing up. I'd rather take some money and put it around the offensive line, put it around some receivers, and give him an opportunity to see what we can do in 2026. I always talk about it like this. Hey, if the Shedeur Sanders conversation is always polarizing, but I think everybody can agree in this. If you put as much as you can around Shedeur Sanders, and you do give him some weapons, and you do get him veterans, and you do have a nice running game and a rebuilt offensive line, if he comes out in 2026 and you give him an opportunity to show what he can do, and he doesn't do anything, by all stretch of the imagination, I think both people would look at you and say, all right, you did what you were supposed to. You wanted to see if a 5th-round pick can be it. You gave him an opportunity to win the job in camp. He came out of camp and won it. He had pieces around him. If it didn't work, everybody's going to go to 2027 and say, okay, well, we see why the Browns, with a new coach and Todd Monken, are going to go try to find their quarterback in that draft. I think everybody that would be reasonable. Now, that's the factor that I would try to do. And if you are a detractor of Deshaun or Shedeur Sanders, if you don't think he's very good and he doesn't perform well, then you'll be right in position to get a quarterback in the next year's draft because you'll be picking low. So to me, that's the path I would go with, because if you can and you do hit on him, it changes the trajectory of what you're doing, because now you got a quarterback that you feel confident in, that's a franchise quarterback that you've vetted, that you've given an opportunity to, and he's turned out to be something. Now you get rid of the Deshaun Watson contract, and you're moving forward with a quarterback who's on a very, very minimal-ski deal.
So let me ask you this. Andrew Berry's got to get it right. He doesn't have a lot of time, nor does Todd Monken. Todd Monken has been with this organization. He realizes as a 60-year head coach, there's a 59, whatever it is, first-year head coach in the NFL. He's not going to get a lot of time to get it right. Is there any quarterback, Kyler Murray, Anthony Richardson, two, I'm not even going there, but either of those, any of the younger guys that could be available, not having to mortgage the future, do you bring any of them in to compete with?
I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind. Let me tell you this. Who sold me on? Zach Jackson sold me on this one. He said, look, Anthony Richardson is a guy, and you look at it, Anthony Richardson has elite athleticism, an elite arm in terms of throwing the ball and arm strength. The problem with Anthony Richardson was the fact that most people would have told him not to come out of Florida. He was raw to start with coming out of Florida. They drafted him 4th overall. He was thrust into play immediately, and that compounded things. He never really understood the offense, never understood what defense was trying to do, and the speed of the game was just it was too fast. Right now, you bring him in. If you want to bring him in, you're not gonna, what is it, a 5th round pick? I mean, you're not gonna get anything crazy for him. It's gonna be something that you can use to bring in to develop, and the push come to shove, it makes your quarterback room better. You can bring Dylan Gabriel back. Maybe Anthony Richardson beats him out. Who knows? Maybe Anthony Richardson plays very well and it beats Deshaun Watson out. And push come to shove, you can always use him and his athleticism. They always love bringing in quarterbacks for short yardage and running the Wildcat and doing things, figure out something for him. If you want to bring in Anthony Richardson for a low risk, low reward, I'd rather take that over drafting Tai Simpson high, over giving Malik Willis $40 million or $30-some million guaranteed, or a guy like Kyler Murray. I don't think Kyler Murray would come here because he wants to resurrect his career. It sounds like he wants to go to a place where he can get, play a year, get his contract, get his career back on track. And Minnesota is loaded when it comes to, talent and people around him. So I think he'll go there. But if you want to, you can sell me on Anthony Richardson for a low price and bring him in and see what throw him in the mix. I'm all down for that. And if you're Shedeur Sanders, hey, and Deshaun Watson, hey, listen, if you got confidence in your skill set, beat him out. You should be able to beat Anthony Richardson out. And hey, at the end of the day, it adds some different versatility to the room, and you bring your floor up a little bit as well.
G. Bush and I can step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, Quinshon Judkins talking about Todd Monken. Sports4CLE, we'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Garrett Bush from the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and Barbershop. Browns rookie running back from last year, Quinshon Judkins, talking about Todd Monken on the Downs to Business podcast.
Different coaches over the past couple of years. Have you heard from your new head coach, Todd Monken, yet?
Bro, I have. And, bro, honestly, it's not what I thought it would have been. When I say that in a good way.
What did you think it was going to be? You thought he was going to be
I thought
nerdy?
he was going to be, more so, because my past coach, bro, he was, really even keel, bro, super quiet. I thought I was going to get that from Coach Monken, but it wasn't that. He was, a real players coach, bro. Give me a hug, all that, bro. So he was just super communicative of what he wanted from the team, what his goal is, what his objective is, what he want to come in and do. And, he knows exactly what he wants, and he has a vision. And I think that's what's important as a head coach, and especially being vocal about it, too. I think that's what matters.
G. Bush, there are some people that are viewing that as a shot at Kevin Stefanski. The thing to me that is the best sign is that one of the players, a really good young player, feels that Todd Monken has a vision. That's more important than any. He knows what he wants. That's step one to getting what you want.
Listen, working in corporate America, previous to doing this, at this level, one of the things that they always tell us is the vision and making sure that the people that are, report to you, or the people that are I wouldn't say subordinates, but the people that are your direct reports, that they understand A, that you want the best for them, B, that you have a plan for them specifically, and C, to understand that this is collaborative. Like I got to invest in you. I need you to believe in me. And the greatest thing that I think a coach can do, and Todd Monken reminds me of old school football coaches that I used to have. Like, at least back in the day, they were more of a feel. Everything was about a feel. And, they may have cursed you out a bunch of times. They may have, they was your harshest critic, but you knew how they felt about you. You knew where they were at. You always knew where you were. If you were in a doghouse, you knew it. Your team knew it. It wasn't like, yeah, I see you, I'm cool with you, or didn't say much, and then I'm always guessing, well, what's my role this week? Nah, I want to know what my role is so I can visualize it, so I can see it. And the one problem that I wouldn't even say a problem, it's all about the way you go about it. And there's some people who have their strong suits are communication, and their strong suit is getting people to understand where they are and to be a really good motivator. And I think sometimes when you keep everything close to the vest, sometimes players can be in the dark. And when you're in the dark, it's a tough place to motivate yourself, because you don't know, hey, at the end of the day, I want everybody in the locker room to know we all pull in the rope in one direction. I want you to know that even if you mess up, you're going to exactly know what I did wrong, and I'm going to know what I need to do to fix it. And so for me, I think it's important for a young football team in the Cleveland Browns, the youth, the young guys, to know exactly what the expectation is, where they fit in, and how they fit into the scheme of things. And I think that's super important to have that with young players, because as you can see, you saw Quinshawn, he kind of perked up a little bit. He sat up in his chair like, yeah, man, it was completely different. He gave me a hug, and that type of energy is needed for young teams, because the thing we talk about here so often is culture. And the one thing that you want is to establish a culture of winning and say, whatever happened before with the last regime or whatever in Cleveland Browns history, you guys can be the start of the change of the new way of thinking about that. And so to me, there's people that say, they look at this roster, there's a level of excitement because I do see that there is an era in the locker room of people really thinking, hey, maybe we can be a little more than what we've been in the past, and we can start that today.
So one of the guys that is starting to gain some steam, you're starting to hear some national guys connect the dots to the Browns, is quarterback Tai Simpson, QB2. Greg Cosell, NFL Films, his thoughts on what he sees when he looks at Simpson on tape.
I was a little fascinated by Tai Simpson, and I think the reason I was is because of the nature of Alabama's pass game. They ran NFL stuff. I mean, you saw him make deep dig throws. You saw him throw the ball, hole shots down the sideline. I mean, you saw him make the kinds of throws that you go, that's an NFL throw. I mean, and I thought he played the position with an innate feel for the nuances, the subtleties, the details of it. I think when he's at his best, there's a natural timing and rhythm to his game. I think he processes well. I think the concern with him is there are going to be questions about his pocket efficiency when the rush pressure speeds up his mental and physical process. That's something we saw at Alabama, and I think that's something, look, that's a big deal. He's definitely mobile. He's a good athlete. I mean, when he came out of high school, he was viewed as a dual threat guy. So he intrigues me. I mean, is he special in terms of what we would say talent-wise? Probably not. But you saw throws that you went, wow, those are NFL throws, and he's throwing that with timing, with anticipation. He understands, how to do that. He really intrigues me. I look at a guy like that and think to myself, boy, if Sean McVay had him, he could be a really good quarterback. If he's really coached well at the NFL level, that he could really be an efficient, quality quarterback.
The Browns need too much offensively to take a quarterback that you're kind of projecting Tai Simpson, because he hadn't had enough college starts.
15 starts. I talked to Sean King on the barbershop on the podcast, and he said, look, I like Tai Simpson. I like him kind of along the same lines as I do like Tai Simpson. Same way I like Mendoza. He has them rated kind of like in the same round. He says, listen, in terms of the big board, I got them for late first, early second round picks in terms of his board. Now, they'll go higher than that because they're quarterbacks, and that's just the nature of the beast. And what we're seeing right now is that is the nature of the beast what's going on with Tai Simpson. He's the second-rated quarterback on the board. Quarterbacks are always going to be talked about higher given what they're doing. Now, here's the thing about him. If you take a look at his first, I would say, 6 to 8 games, right? Look like a totally different quarterback. Those first 6 to 8 games, he was cooking. Him and Matier and some of those other names were at the top of the food chain. However, it's all about the long game, and that's the scary part about it. 15 starts. You look at the first body of work, you're like, oh, that's great. But what happens when they get a little tape on you? What happens when people figure you out a little bit? And you get injured, you get banged up a little bit. The sack started to come. The running game wasn't what it was. Ryan Williams turned out, he took a step back. So, and you know, Kalen DeBoer is a coordinator who's going to have a pro-style offense. Now, what I will say about this, though, is when you talk about the level of offense that he ran, it is definitely pro-style. They got multiple reads, looks. They do it. He's asked to do a lot more than Mendoza. If you look at Mendoza and you watch all these games, and I went back and watched a bunch of them, and I talked to a lot of different evaluators, the thing that scares me with him is the RPO stuff. I mean, he's a magician at it. He's going to, like, he makes the RPO a cheat code, because if you take a step to the left, he's going to hit the receiver behind you. If you move slightly, he's going to hand the ball off. 2 good running backs, nice offensive line, and it just looks like you can't stop it. And then in third down, he's going to throw that back shoulder fade. Like he has that with Elijah Surratt and Cooper. Those dudes, they got that down. But what happens when you're forced to get back to that third or fifth step? Diagnose what the defense is doing, and there's no RPO action. That's the gauge. So where Tai Simpson, I would agree, he's more advanced than Mendoza is. But the thing with Mendoza is he just has that it factor where it's like they believe. Indiana never is out of a football game. They don't believe that they're going to lose. Even if they're playing Alabama, they're playing Ohio State, even if they're less talented, he has the leadership intangibles to make people play a little better than what they actually may be. But in terms of Tai Simpson, I don't think the Browns are in that position at this moment. I think he's a project quarterback. I think he's a guy that needs to sit for about a year. And if you're going to play him in year one, be ready for some heartaches and pains a little bit. But, he'll get drafted in the first round. It's just about where it's going to be. I think maybe somewhere later in the first round, Pittsburgh, one of those teams might take a look at him.
All right, before I let you go, free agency starts next week. What does a home run in free agency look like for Andrew Berry this year?
A home run in free agency for Andrew Berry is getting 2 to 3 starters. Give me 2 to 3 starters wherever you're at on the offensive side of the football. Whether that's adding another piece, if you're going to run a lot of 12 personnel, maybe that's unlikely. Give me a Romeo Dobbs. Give me if you don't get a trade for Marvin Harrison Jr., give me a splash trade. Where I want to get to in free agency is I want to get to a net neutral. What that means for me is I can go anywhere I want to. If you get to a point where you've already made 2, you got 2 offensive linemen that are going to be starters for you. You've gotten another 2 receivers that are going to be starters for you that can be younger and guys that are going to be veterans that are ready to play right now. Now what you can do in the draft is you can maximize your draft potential, because now you can do anything. You can take the best available player to make your defense even greater. You can trade down to get more assets for later draft picks, or you can stockpile and get and become a position of strength and get you more talent in the offensive line or the wide receiver group. So to me, I want to see them get 2 to 3 starters wherever they are on the offensive side of the football, and give us an opportunity that when the draft comes around, you don't know what they're going to do. They can take best available player. They can draft offense, defense, whatever the case may be, and it puts you in a position to maximize how well you're going to be able to play now. Because like you said, Andrew Berry, he ain't got long. He got to get it right this year. He got to hit on the draft picks as well. And Todd Monken is looking to revamp this offense as well. 1-2 years tops. You ain't got 5, 6 years to rebuild things no more. And I think that will help them go a long way.
G. Bush, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Appreciate it.
Garrett Bush, make sure you check him out Monday through Friday, 11 to 1. Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show on the weekends. Catch him on the barbershop. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns. Casey Kinnamon from the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast up next. Stay with us.
Get ready for action like never before. The 2026 Mid-American Conference Basketball Tournament presented by Credit Union One returns to Rocket Arena March 11th through the 14th. Every shot, every steal, every buzzer beater, it all comes down to this. The best of the MAC men's and women's teams battle for glory, pride, and a ticket to the big dance. Feel the intensity, hear the roar. MAC Tournament Basketball. Be there. Tickets on sale now at rocketarena.com.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi with his thoughts on where Andrew Berry might be looking next week with the start of free agency.
Preview of free agency and the Browns. It starts Monday. They can start negotiating with teams. What position should they be looking at? Number one, offensive line, right? Either left tackle or the center. They could use players at both positions. I'd also look at, obviously, wide receiver, somebody who is good enough to play on the field immediately alongside Jerry Jeudy. And thirdly, how about a second tight end, a guy who not only can catch but can block, plays second fiddle to Harold Fannin. I think Todd Monken has a few over there left in Baltimore who will be available.
With that, let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast and the Barking Browns podcast. All right, Casey, so when you look at it, what areas do you think Andrew Berry goes shopping in for free agency? They've redone Deshaun Watson's contract, likely going to do the same with Ward's, and then the Howard restructure will probably give them some more cap space as well.
Yeah, that Howard restructure will probably be minimal this year as far as cap hit, and so that gives them the freedom to go out and pursue players. I look at, obviously, this offensive line needs a ton of work. You've got 1 of 5 as we sit here today. You need to fill out some more spots. Obviously, kind of still waiting on Joel Bitonio's decision. But you need to raise the floor in that room. You need professional offensive linemen. I'm not setting the bar super high. Coming off what you came off last year, you need to get some bodies in the room that can actually do some damage. I do think tight end, too, is something to look at. And I know there's a lot of connections with people in Baltimore, with Kolar and Likely, but I'd even look at someone like Cade Otton in Tampa Bay. You need another professional in that room if truly David Njoku is not in the plans for 2026. And wide receiver. There's a ton of room there. And once again, almost like the offensive line room, you need professionals. You need some guys who can come in and automatically just raise the floor and give you a base from which to play. So you're not just relying on projections and hopes and wishes. The guys take steps in years 2 and 3 and 4. I think all those need to be addressed. Now, I don't think that first wave of free agency is where the Browns are going to make their splash. Barry kind of usually waits for that to crest and kind of dives in on the second wave and gets value. So I kind of think that's going to be the same operation this year.
All right, so what constitutes a home run for Andrew Berry in free agency then, in your mind?
Well, I'll leave Malik Willis out of this discussion so we can be realistic. Honestly, I think that you need to. I mentioned Cade Otton's name. I'd be someone I'd be highly interested in. That'd be a home run for me, someone who can do some of the inline blocking, but also provide as a receiver, give you a solid 12 personnel from which to build. I look at someone like Olamide Zaccheaus, another floor-raising wide receiver that's not going to make any splashes. You're not going to see that name and say, the problem is solved, but that is a name that you can come in and he can be a professional level wide receiver and kind of aid you there. But this offensive line, if you're going to make a splash, I think that's probably where they're going to do it.
Yeah,
I know like Linderbaum, someone people are looking at, but something along those lines to really bolster that front unit.
Yeah, I'm with you. If you come out of it with Linderbaum and Otton, that's pretty. You not only raised the floor, you've raised the ceiling of that offensive line. I'm not really interested in overpaying a tackle that's kind of middle tier like Walker. I would overpay a center who projects as one of the top in the NFL.
point, he comes in and he already speaks Monken's language. So you're hitting the ground running with protections, and it just kind of fast forwards you a little bit and gives you a little bit of a learning curve so the other guys can catch up and get on his page, as far as across the line. So you need that communicator up front, and I think he would give you that, and it would kind of give you a tiny little cheat code to ramp up this offense quicker.
All right, Nathan Zagura, Browns radio analyst on their network. The possibility of the Browns trading for a wide receiver.
I think what the Buffalo Bills did yesterday is going to make it a heck of a lot harder to trade for a wide receiver than it was before they did that. Now, maybe from kind of the talk around the league that everybody thought that was an incredibly rich compensation package that they gave up to get DJ Moore, a second-round pick for a guy who hasn't had 1,000 yards in 3 of his last 4 seasons and is being paid a lot. And then they guaranteed some of his money into 2028. So if you are the Philadelphia Eagles with A.J. Brown, you're saying if that's what DJ Moore got, I'm going to need a lot more than that. So I think that could make this a lot harder. And then in the case of Marvin Harrison, has he produced at the level anybody expected? No, but he's still on a rookie contract for 2 years, potentially 3, if you look at, obviously the 50-year option. Marvin Harrison Jr. was highly regarded coming out. It hasn't worked out. You'd have to dive into why that is, but I think that they're going to want even more compensation than a DJ Moore. This is in their mind. Obviously, you'd say, well, listen, it hasn't worked out here, but we know his talent, an ascending player. So I think that Bills trade and a little bit of the desperation they put in that might make it harder for some of these wide receiver deals to get done of the guys that you would think you could bring in that could fundamentally change your offense.
Casey, I didn't even think of that. I think he's absolutely right when I heard that, though.
Yeah, the Bills definitely paid a hefty price. No, that's a trade I can see working out for both teams. It clears the way for Burden and Odunze and Loveland to get shares in Chicago, but they needed something like that to happen in Buffalo. I don't know. There's 48 days between now and the NFL draft. I think a lot of things can unfold. And if some of these guys don't get moved for higher prices, if Monte Alstonfort's waiting for a better deal and he doesn't get something that comes across his board that's a better deal than 39, I can still see him pulling the trigger. I just think it'll take later. I think it'll be later down the line. But it definitely muddies the water early, But we'll have to wait till the smoke clears and you start to see, what are the Colts going to do with Michael Pittman? There's a couple players out there that I'd be highly interested in, but it just depends on that asking price and who are you battling with to get that. That's what it all comes down to. But Andrew Berry's going to trade for a wide receiver. That's going to happen. I just think it's going to be a little further down the line than the start of free agency.
All right, so CBS Sports' Mike Renner, his thoughts on free agent Rasheed Walker, thought to be the best tackle available in the upcoming free agency.
I would not want him either. Truthfully, I didn't even think he should have been starting last year for the Green Bay Packers. I don't think he was one of their best 5. But, as JP said, he's the best left tackle on the market. Cam Robinson's your only other starter at left tackle from last season, hitting the market, and a lot of teams have tried that. A lot of teams have regretted trying that at this point. So if you need one that can even be capable of starting, it's him. So it does feel like he's going to get that Dan Moore deal just because desperation wins out.
Sounds to me like you're drafting some tackles if you're the Cleveland Browns or a tackle-needy team.
Yeah, when you have to invoke Cam Robinson's name to come up with the next best, I think we're just in a bad spot with free agent tackles. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens because he was hit with a gun charge in January in New York, And if you look into the details of it, it was a legally owned gun in Wisconsin. He just didn't have a permit for it in New York. So when he landed at the airport, it caused some stuff. I don't know if that'll cause any teams to slow up, but because if you just look at the Dan Moore deal from last year, you're not competing in that arena. If that's what Rasheed Walker's going to be paid, bow out of that and let someone else pay that tag, and then you chase offensive tackle in the draft.
All right, so one of the many quarterbacks who Browns fans are talking about, debating, is Kyler Murray. Greg Cosell, NFL Films, talking about what he sees when he looks at him on film.
He's always been a tough evaluation for me because, he's a shorter quarterback. He obviously has a good arm, and he's a very explosive mover as well, and we've seen that. He's had some games. I can think back. It wasn't this year. It might have been the year before against the Rams. It was early in the season. He had one of those games where he just made ridiculous plays outside of structure, which he's capable of doing any given week. The question is, can he play with any kind of real consistency within structure? And now that comes down to coaching. You mentioned Minnesota. I have no idea what Kevin O'Connell thinks of him, but obviously that's a very highly structured, well-schemed pass game. I think that unfortunately, there's other elements that come into play with Kyler Murray that we all know about. You're asking me about the football part. The other part's out there, and there's no question it's in the league. You know that, Ross, and that's a factor. So it's going to be really interesting to see where he goes. But I think that he needs, even though he's very good improvisationally, I think he needs a really structured offense that allows him to play that way and have the other part be, I don't want to say secondary, but not the featured part of his game.
Casey, just when I hear that, and the other part of it is, doesn't like to put in the work, not sure if he really likes that kind of thing. I think think of what Todd Monken did with Lamar Jackson. Now Lamar Jackson's bigger, but Kyler Murray, he's the only guy to ever be drafted top 10 in both the NFL and Major League Baseball drafts. He is a freakishly good athlete, and I think Todd Monken could probably unlock him a little bit.
Yeah, when you look at the play style, and if you look at what Monken's been able to do with mobile quarterbacks, you could see a path to that. But if you were to tell me on face value, I'm going to have to pay for Kyler Murray, I'd probably be out on it. But if the Cardinals have to guarantee so much of his money and you're on a friendly deal, you can talk yourself into it. The question is, and this is something that he talked about in interviews last year, is not wanting to rely on his legs as much. Well, if that's the case, then I'm all the way out. I need you to rely on your legs, because that's what makes him an outlier, is that freakishly explosive athletic ability to make people miss, keep plays alive, and just because the nature of his play, he can't win over the middle because he can't see over the line. So I need him to be able to move, to shift pockets, to do all those things. I know Monken would be willing to do that. And the Browns aren't exactly in a position where we have a bunch of riches at quarterback and we can no, we don't need Kyler Murray. If it's contract friendly and you can get him and he's willing to use his legs, I'm in. But if any of those factors fall apart, then I'd have to be out.
All right, gut feeling. Do you think the Browns bring in another quarterback? And if you do, is it draft or is it free agent veteran type deal?
Yes. I think probably both. Now, you listen to them talk, you'd be like, oh, they're ready to go into the season with who they have. I just can't wrap my head around that. If I'm looking at it, I need another professional quarterback to step in this room to at least compete for the job. So then if Shedeur is your starter, then he had to beat a professional quarterback to get there. Now, I know people might point to Watson. I can't do that. Now, this is a new coaching staff that they might be like, okay, fresh start. Maybe they're going to allow that. But and I'm not even setting the bar high. I'm talking about a Marcus Mariota or Jacoby Brissett, just another professional quarterback to come in there and compete and be that guy. And if Shedeur wins, that's great. That's a great problem to have, because a starting quarterback on a rookie contract can really help you. But I need that to happen. I do not want to see the job handed to anyone. And it's going to be hard to sell to me that, yeah, he's your starter because he beat this stage of Deshaun Watson. So I think that, yes, I would want to see a veteran come in. But I'm also not against throwing a day 3 dart on a Taylon Green from Arkansas or something like that, a high trait guy, just to give Monken someone to work with long term, to just give him someone to mold if the draft falls like that. So we're to the point, like, you make that net as big as possible and throw it. Like, you just give me a quarterback, give me as many quarterbacks. And I also anticipate that Gabriel's not going to be on this roster. For whatever reason, I just have the feeling that by the time you get through the preseason, he's going to be on a different team, opening up a spot for someone.
So the one thing I would say to remember, and tell me if you agree, Andrew Berry, he's got to have – this roster has to continue to improve, or Andrew Berry won't be the GM of it. And Todd Monken is 60 years old, and he knows. He's been here. Clock's ticking. You cannot afford – you can afford one bad season, 2 bad seasons in a row, and there's probably a new head coach here.
Yeah, you can't hire the oldest first-time head coach in NFL history and just sit on your hands for a season. That they did this to be competitive early, and I know that there's an uphill battle because you're lacking some of the premier positions that you need to be successful in this league. But the clock is ticking. And not for nothing, Stefanski went to a place where they might have a little bit of success. Their division's not that tough. He's got plenty of offense to work with. Now, everything's circumstantial, but you don't think the national media is going to paint that narrative if he has success right away and Cleveland doesn't? That the Browns made the wrong decision by moving on from Kevin Stefanski and keeping Andrew Berry, because that'll 100% happen. So I think he knows he's being evaluated. You've removed every other circumstance. DePodesta's gone. Stefanski's gone. Andrew Berry's the one guy remaining. So he will be judged on how this goes. And there'll be no other avenue to place blame on someone else. So he 100% believe that they need to be as competitive as possible.
Casey Kinnamon, was always great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Anytime, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out, All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, as well as the Barking Browns podcast. We're in a step-aside take, a quick timeout, film breakdown, video analysis of some quarterbacks, both veterans and rookies, that might interest the Browns. Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, straight ahead. Stay with us.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me, the Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day, put a little play in your day.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. We continue to look at areas the Browns can upgrade. We're going to look at quarterbacks today. Let's welcome in Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Film breakdown, video analysis. Lance, you got two guys that are veterans, two guys that are rookies. Let's start with a guy that is expected to be released when the new league year starts next week. That would be Kyler Murray of the Cardinals. What do you see with Murray?
Well, breaking down this film the last couple of days, he's a guy who has great feet. So you're going to see here you can do design runs. That's huge in the red zone. So that's +1 with a 31 blocking out in front of him. Next thing, he can make all the throws from in and outside the pocket. His feet are outstanding. And obviously his size is what kills him. But you're going to see him here change the pocket a little bit. He's got all the arm strength you need. He can make all the throws in and outside the pocket. For me, availability is his thing with his size. And I've never been a big believer in that you can't make throws when you're under 6 foot. But what ends up happening is if you're under 6 foot, you're under 200 pounds. And this is such a brutal league. So you can see he can make all the throws from in and outside the pocket. He can change platforms. He's a tremendous athlete. His high school film is some of the best film I've ever broken down at any level of football. He does some really, really good things, both in and out. He's very intriguing to me. Once again, the idea that you wouldn't want to bring him, I just don't understand. He's got multiple seasons over 3,000 yards passing. He's got all the skill sets, and he can get himself out of trouble, which what the next quarterback for the Browns is going to have to do for a year or two, probably, in my opinion.
Well, Todd Monken has said he wants a mobile quarterback, that he sees a value, the explosion and the plays. I guess the concern I have with Murray is I don't know that I want a guy that's under 200 pounds taking hits downfield like he's going to because of the way he runs and is able to get out.
Well, yeah, and he extends plays, and when you extend plays, you open yourself up for hits. And obviously being in the AFC North, he's a smaller guy. You get to the midseason, you start playing in cold weather. And do I like this trade 3 years from now even more? Yeah, or this acquisition? Absolutely, because the Browns will be in a dome. And sometimes these undersized guys with not huge hands and being in perfect condition helps them. So, yeah, he's got the track record. I like guys who are proven. There's some issues there. There's some questions, but he's a guy. He's definitely the best quarterback on this roster if brought in. And if winning right now is important, Kyler Murray should be on the board, or at least somebody you discuss.
The thing is, he's going to have his choice because he can sign for the league minimum because his guaranteed money has already been paid by the Cardinals for next year. Could you make the case that Cleveland is with Todd Monken would be a destination that could help him benefit his career?
Well, I said this a couple of days ago, and here's what I think. Greg Roman is a guy when he was with the Ravens. That was before Monken got there as the offensive coordinator. Monken was then at Georgia. I thought Greg Roman did a great job, him and Harbaugh, of taking Lamar Jackson and making him an elite player and kind of making his skill set early on in his career, his ability to run, throw on the run. And then it kind of reached its tipping point. And then they brought in Todd Monken to kind of take it to the next level. And that next level was Lamar Jackson really good in the pocket along with his feet. And they kind of married both schemes, and they use a lot of what Greg Roman does. So, yeah, for me, if he's a guy who has all the money he needs, if you're a guy who's looking to maximize maybe your skill set and somebody who's going to kind of do what you do well, then yes, I think Todd Monken is a guy that you have to at least engage and maybe come talk to and see what he can do for you and your skill set. So yeah, I do think Todd Monken and what he did with Lamar Jackson after Greg Roman did a great job, took it to the next level. I think it's a spot he will maybe look at. The weather is a deterrence for these guys sometimes, and I don't blame them.
All right, so another guy, the second guy we're going to take a look at, free agent, Malik Willis, quarterback, Green Bay last year. By all accounts, the top free agent quarterback. What do you see when you look at him?
Well, he's a big version, right? Big version of Ty Murray. He can run. You see here, design run as a zone read with an escort out in front. He can make all the with his feet, right? You're going to see him here on play action. They move the pocket a lot. He keeps plays alive with his feet. He's big enough to take a bunch of hits. I love them coming out of Liberty. So you'll see him here just setting his feet, little quick game. I thought he did a great job with that. Very limited starts, right? He doesn't have a ton of throws in the NFL, but what he does have, he has experience behind some really good guys. He can make all the throws, seam throws. Like I said, his feet are outstanding. And Todd Monken, this is a guy that really intrigues Todd Monken. I know he does because he's big enough to take more hits than Kyler Murray. And if you're going to be in that quarterback run game, zone read, or obviously the +1, then you got to make sure that guy's got a little bit of backside on him, and Malik Willis does. I really like him. I'm not as high on him as anybody yet, just because of experience. I think he can be really good, but the quarterback position, you need to see it over and over for years and years. So we'll see what he can do moving forward. Made himself a lot of money in the few snaps he got last year.
Yeah, the lack of starts in the NFL, obviously a concern. As is, somebody's probably going to give him $30 million a year for multiple years, which I don't know that the Browns are ready to bet that much on Malik Willis.
Well, yeah, because they have two projects in the building right now, two guys they're working on right now, and if you pay him $30 million, he's your guy. He's the starter. And I don't know if he's done enough to prove that yet, and I think with the holes on this roster and the things that Shador has done, the things that, even though people don't like him, things that Dylan has done, especially as a backup. And then people don't like to hear this, but when you have a new coach, Deshaun Watson put himself right back in the mix. And when people say that's not true, I disagree. None of what happens with Deshaun Watson leading up to this point matters because it's a new coach. So we're going to see what happens. But no, I don't think investing that much money is a good thing.
All right, so let's take a look at a couple of the quarterbacks in this draft. We won't look at Mendoza. He's going to the Raiders. He's not going to be there even at 6. The first guy we're going to look at is more of a day 2, maybe even day 3 guy, early day 3, Garrett Nussmeier, LSU. What do you see when you look at him?
Well, I had him high on my board last year. You're going to see him here again. The guy can do enough with his feet. Now, he's not a great athlete, but he can do enough with his feet. He can make all the throws from inside and outside the pocket. He had a tough year. Brian Kelly got fired. They had some O-line issues. See him here. He breaks contain, does a nice job keeping his eyes downfield, delivers a strike over across the middle. Really good throw there against Clemson early on. That Clemson game, he was just outstanding. I remember people giving me calls because I had him high on my board last year. Then you're going to see a nice fade route here to the corner where only his receiver can get it. Now, when you think about Garrett Nussmeier, he had a tough year. The LSU Tigers had a tough year. But this stuff, he's a coach's kid, and I think he has all the intangibles. Now, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but I think Garrett Nussmeier has a chance to be a really good pro. I have him much closer to Mendoza and ahead of Tai Simpson. And I have him substantially above Tai Simpson because of the amount of games he's played in college. So I like Garrett Nussmeier. I think he can make all the throws. I think he's going to be a really good pro. A guy, if it tells you what they think of their quarterback room, if they take a guy maybe 3rd, 4th round, him and Tai Simpson are guys that they got a lot of qualities that you like. Garrett Nussmeier is a really good football player for me. I've had him high on my board for 2 years in a row. I like for me, he's going to be a steal for someone day 2, even into day 3.
Well, the other thing you mentioned, his dad, he's the offensive coordinator for the Saints. So he grew up and kind of understands a little bit about life in the NFL because he's seen it firsthand.
Well, yeah, when you're a coach's kid, it doesn't matter what level you're at. That's what you do. That's what you've done your whole life. You go to practice. You get up in the morning. Your days have been filled with two-a-days. You get up, you go to practice. So he's been around the game. He understands the game. And then especially at the NFL level, he understands the day-to-day operations of being – now it's not even a sport. It's a job. So, yeah, he knows it all in terms of that from his father. And then just being around the game, him and Tai Simpson. Tai Simpson also grew up as a coach's kid. That's just all you do. That's all you know. That's your hobbies. That's your fun. That's just what we do. That's all we know, and it's what we like to do.
All right, weaknesses for Nussmeier. You mentioned kind of a limited athletic ability. You know, it's not that he's not athletic. He just isn't going to be a guy that runs around a lot. What else did you look at and go, these are things he needs to work on if he can?
Well, he's got to be better when he's under pressure, right? So when he gets pressured, that's when his interception. It's that case for all quarterbacks. You know, they're not as consistent. But what you got to do under pressure is not make that catastrophic mistake. If you look back here last year with like Shedeur did a lot of great things, but when pressure happens is when you make poor throws. He's also got to continue to get the third and fourth progression and make sure that it keeps his footwork. And then I'd say the big thing, obviously, just not being a huge guy. He's 6'2", he's just around 200 pounds. He's going to have to add a little bit of weight to that frame just to be able to handle those big hits he gets from guys like Myles Garrett, those guys coming off the edge, especially in the AFC North. So, once again, I think it's just reps. I think it's keeping the footwork under pressure and making sure you protect the ball when you are being pressured so you don't make that big mistake.
All right, the next quarterback we're going to look at, you mentioned Tai Simpson. We know he did have a 30 visit with the Browns yesterday. What do you see when you look at Tai Simpson?
Well, first 6 games, they're outstanding. You're going to see him again, once again, design run. He's a good enough athlete, very much like Garrett Nussmeier. He's a good enough athlete, not a great athlete. He can make all the throws from both inside and outside the pocket. You see him here just taking this step, breaks contained, keeps his eyes downfield, and throws an absolute strike. Very similar to what Nussmeier did in the previous reps. Then you're going to see him here. What I like is that when he's in the pocket, he stands in the pocket and takes a big hit, makes a great throw. So this is the guy with all this, once again, he's a little bit undersized, but he's going to make all the throws from inside and outside the pocket. His feet are good enough. He does a great job in that DeBoard offense. They do a lot of different things, so he's well coached and well versed on what he's going to see. My big thing is he's got 15 starts, and that has never been a recipe for success in the NFL when you come in, and now you're going to see everything and everything done at a really fast level. And once again, it shows my age here, but I'm a Bill Parcells guy. And it's not just number of starts, it's number of wins. So Bill Parcells always wanted 30 starts. He wanted 23 wins. He wanted a 3-year starter. And, you know, it's funny, but there's a lot to say about the hits you take. And just becoming that grizzled veteran, if you don't have that, if you look like Mitch Trubisky, it's just hard in the NFL because these guys are so good. This is what you get paid to do now. These guys all day are figuring out ways to stop you and take away what you do well. So that's a big, big concern for me, just as lack of experience. A lot of tools there for Tai Simpson, however.
You mentioned kind of deep ball consistency can be a problem, and then the accuracy gets to be a little not as great when he's pressured.
Yeah, when his feet aren't set. So I think Nussmeier does a much better job when he's on the run. There's a big difference between, and now he makes some good throws, no doubt about it, but the consistency when his feet are in the, when he's not on, when everything's not perfect, are a little bit off compared to some of the other guys. Really, really good from the pocket. He's okay outside the pocket, but this is a pocket guy with good athleticism, not great. This is the guy that could be really, really good in 2 years because the experience, for me, would be a perfect fit for like the Rams. You get to sit behind Matthew Stafford for a year. Again, learn all that experience because he does have great tools. I think he needs to get bigger and stronger and just kind of learn the game more. He's still so new to it. Even though he's a coach's kid, his dad coached in college, this NFL game is going to be fast for him, especially since he hasn't seen a lot in college.
Lance Reisland, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Lance.
As always, thanks for having me.
Lance Reisland, make sure you check him out. Cleveland.com and The Plain Deal are always good and insightful video analysis. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. Have a great weekend. We will see you back here Monday at 4 on Sports for CLE.